అందరికీ నమస్కారం. నేను మీ ఇందు. తల్లి, తండ్రి, గురువు, దైవం ఈ నలుగురు మన జీవితంలో ఎంతో ముఖ్యమైన పాత్ర పోషిస్తారు. సో అలాంటి గురువు మనకి జ్ఞానం ఇస్తాడు. అలాంటి ఎందరో గురువుల నుంచి ఈరోజు మీ ముందుకి ఒక గురువుని తీసుకొచ్చాను. ఆయనే మేజర్ ఎస్పీఎస్ ఒబెరాయ్ గారు. సో ఆయన గురించి, ఆయన జీవితం గురించి ఈరోజు మనం తెలుసుకుందాం. హలో సార్, నమస్తే.
Namaskaram.
My pleasure to talking with you. So please tell us something about you from audit and accounts to this time journey.
I am Major SPS Oberoi, as you have given my introduction. See, it's been a very long journey that I have started working. From the age of 13, I have been working. Now I am 38 years old. So approximately 25 years of working, in my case. I've started working in my teenage because of some family compulsions. Okay. So I did my intermediate in civics, economics and commerce from Royal College in SR Nagar, and I was a state ranker in CEC. And after that I pursued my BCom from Badruka College of Commerce and Arts. I got a distinction there, and I continued working in the field of audit and accounting for good about 4 years. And in the year 2004, that's when I made up my mind to join the Indian Army. And I joined the army in 2004. After 1 year of my basic training, I served in the Indian Armed Forces for good about 10 years. And in 2015, I came out of the army voluntarily. So ever since 2015, I always had a passion of teaching. So I was looking for a platform where I can interact with the students. So it's by chance that I came across UPSC as a platform. To be a student myself initially and as a teacher lately. So in past 4 to 5 years I am guiding students on the various strategies of UPSC preparation, and it's been a long journey in UPSC as a UPSC teacher also. As part of teaching, not only teaching the students, I also have learnt lot of things about so many aspects of our culture, our socio-economic issues, our internal security issues, the relations of India with various countries and other things. So it's been a great learning rather than great teaching. I would say it was a great learning in the last 5 years. So this is where I have started as a teenager at the age of 13, 14. Now at the age of 38, I am in front of you as a teacher for UPSC. Yeah.
Why UPSC?
See, ma'am, UPSC as a platform, not only for the student, even for the teacher, it is challenging. Why? Because though UPSC stands for Union Public Service Examination, it is actually colloquially called as unpredictable, service commission, right? So it is always a challenge for the teacher also, not only for the students. For the teacher also, it is a challenge how to teach a particular student for this particular examination. So I felt and I voluntarily accepted this challenge as a teacher, because UPSC always asks evolving kind of questions. So to be more, you have to be abreast with knowledge every day when you are interacting with the students in the classroom setting or otherwise also. So this UPSC came as a challenge to me, and I accepted this challenge voluntarily, and I think I am doing well in this field guiding students.
When should one start the preparation? I mean, how many years before? Already you told, no?
Yeah, this is a very difficult question to answer. See, there is no fixed schedule, I can say. Say, if you are an intelligent student, you have been academically very strong throughout your academic career, you might take less time. But for the person who has not been that academically strong and but suddenly decides to take UPSC as a career option, for them it takes a little bit lengthier time. So, but that can be compensated with dedication. If you work hard dedicatedly, so probably I generally say 18 to 24 months is the apt time to prepare for UPSC. And this problem of how much time is more pronounced in the southern India. Why? Because most of the students, what I have seen in the graduation, either they are doctorates or they are engineers. So for students with this particular background of two backgrounds of IT and engineering, they find a lot of difficulty in grasping some concepts related to arts, ethics, essay writing and other things. So for them, it takes a little bit more time. I won't say longer time, but a very little bit more time to understand the style of questioning or answering what you call arts background related questions. So tentatively you can say 18 months to 24.
What do you want to tell students of Telugu medium preparing for UPSC?
See, this Telugu medium students, this is a very big challenge front actually. Why? Because there is a feeling among students that if you are good in English, you can clear this examination. But that's not the case. Why? Because it is UPSC is not a test of your English, but lack of what you call hold on this particular language. It has put lot of students at the back foot, because they feel that they are not that particular prepared as regards English as a subject. But my sincere suggestion to the students is, see, even for Telugu medium students, there is an option to write in Telugu medium. That is one option. But if somebody exercises the option of writing in English, not in Telugu, for them a particular dedicated approach of with lot of strategy as regards improving their vocabulary as part of their teaching, that should be targeted. I won't say it is impossible. It is very much possible, but you need to make some amount of extra efforts to you come out of that hesitation or your handicap in that particular language. And I have seen a lot of Telugu medium students. They have done exceptionally well. Even here in what you call Andhra and Telangana, we have a history of students coming from the Telugu medium background and getting very good ranks in the UPSC. So it is only in your mind that I do not have a strong what you call hold on my language English. Over a period of time, when you keep reading these books, you develop a very unique style of writing in UPSC, which is very different from corporate English. See, this is an administrative setup. Administrative English is what is required. And when you read these books over and over, revise them over and over a period of time, you develop that administrative English acumen with you. So that that part of having a problem with English is addressed to a larger extent there. So that generally, maybe in the initial stages, you might find it difficult in the classroom setting to understand some words of the teacher or something. But over a period of time, with patience and with dedicated efforts, I think you can cross this particular barrier of English as well. So not a challenge. Even if you are a Telugu medium student, some amount of more efforts you have to put in for your language, what you call training, but otherwise you can do exceptionally well. So you need not worry that I am from Telugu medium, whether this is my field or not. Not at all to worry. That can be taken care of.
How important is the choice of optional?
See, it can make you or it can break you. See, if you see the scheme of UPSC setting, the optional carries around 500 marks. Out of 2025, 500 marks is kind of 1/4 of the marks are there for your optional. So I've seen a lot of students doing mistake with their optionals, and after a year or two of preparing one particular optional, they switch over to another option. So after 2 years of their hard work in preparing for one particular optional, again if they have to switch to another optional, so it will take maybe another 2 years time. So one have to be very, very careful in choosing what they want to be an optional subject. Say for example, but there are some what you call benchmarks which the student generally sees before opting for an optional. One is the scoring pattern of that particular optional subject. That is one major benchmark which generally the students see. And the second benchmark is the availability of faculty nearby. So these two are the major factors which are generally considered by the students before choosing their optional. But what I also suggest to the students is that try to take an optional which you have studied as part of your career, maybe your graduation or maybe your post graduation. That will help you immensely in understanding the fundamental concepts related to that particular optional. Even if you have to travel a bit to get a good faculty in that particular optional, I suggest that is worth going for, because if you see the ranking patterns also, the main thing that separates the toppers from the rest of the lot, it is their performance in the optional subject. So having a very clear idea what optional I want, having a clear idea why I am choosing this particular optional, and having interest in that particular optional is very, very important. Because if you choose an optional without having interest in that particular subject, you will end up not studying it. So inadvertently, in the longer run, it will affect your scoring in the mains. So you have to be very, very careful when you choose your optional. There are a lot of people who tell that, you know, take this optional blindly, you can just, you know, wrote the content and you can write in the examination. I suggest before taking an optional, you attend couple of classes of couple of optionals. Maybe you are planning to choose between sociology, anthropology or geography. What I generally suggest my students is, you attend 1 to 2 classes of each subject. So you see where your mind is, you know, where you are able to connect with that particular subject. And if you feel, yes, this is what I wanted or this is what I can study, then go ahead with that particular option. So I always tell my students, you be very, very clear whether this particular subject you can study or not, whether you have an inclination, liking for that subject or not. These are the two major factors that you need to take into.
How to start preparation for prelims?
See, if you see the entire scheme of UPSC, it is mainly divided into 3 parts: prelims, mains, followed by interview, right? But to write your mains examination, you have to qualify in prelims. So prelims is a qualifying stage examination. But this is very important from the perspective that you can appear in the mains examination only when you qualify prelims, right? But I have seen always among the students that they have, you know, even the institutions also, many of them which are there in the market, they have so much what you call increased the importance of prelims that students have forgotten the importance of mains as part of their preparation. See, the beauty of your mains examination is, when you are preparing for mains, simultaneously your prelims preparation is also happening. But that is not the case vice versa. If you are preparing for prelims only, you cannot simultaneously prepare for mains, because prelims is objective oriented and mains is subjective or descriptive oriented, right? So the commercialization of UPSC education, it has happened to the core in the field of prelims, but not in the field of mains examination. So what I suggest to students is, when they are preparing for the prelims also, see, for prelims, as you have asked, what is the strategy for preparing for prelims? I always tell my students, pick up 4 to 5 subjects which are very important for prelims, like I call them 5 pillars of prelims. 5 to 6 pillars rather, not 5, 6 pillars of prelims. When I say 6 pillars, I say Indian polity, Indian history, Indian economy, environment, science and technology, and current affairs. So nowadays, current affairs has emerged as a very important pillar of prelims preparation. So if you are good in all these 5 plus 1, 6 pillars in prelims examination, without doing any major mistake in the prelims examination, I think you can cross this particular hurdle. But in this setup of prelims, it is a 2-stage examination, 2-paper examination. Paper 1, which is about general studies. Paper 2, it is about, we call it mathematics. We call it, what do we call here? Paper 2, CSAT. We call it CSAT, okay. So I have seen a lot of students paying adequate attention to the GS paper, that is paper 1, but not very adequate attention is given to paper 2. So there are occasions when people clear the paper 1, but they don't clear the paper 2. So equal attention it is required. Yes, maybe 60-40 ratio, 60% to 70% to prelims, and at least 30% to your CSAT paper also, because that is also qualifying in nature. So when it comes to your GS paper 1, as I said, if you are thorough in the 6 pillars without committing any major mistakes in the preliminary examination, I think you can safely clear your prelims exam. And in these 5 plus 1, 6 pillars, we can divide it into 2 parts. One is your basic part, that is your foundational part. The second is your current affairs part. For the foundation part, I always suggest my students to start your preparation with NCERT books. You know, the NCERT books are the core of prelims preparation. Like my guru in UPSC, he always used to tell, Oberoi, if you have not studied NCERT books, it means that you have not started your preparation. No matter whatever other books, reference books you are reading, if you are not reading NCERT books, it means your preparation is not yet started. So the importance of NCERT is very much that, because it gives you a very strong foundation in understanding the various concepts related to the subjects which are there in the UPSC examination. So I say stage 1 prelims, stage 1 you try to complete your NCERTs in detail. In stage 2 you try to cover the reference books, and in the stage 3 a combination of both along with your current affairs. With this, if you are able to do, you will be able to clear prelims with lot of ease. But students mix up things and they end up doing a lot of mistakes in their preliminary preparation.
Okay. So we are talking NCERT. So okay, how important is NCERT?
NCERT is very, very important. See, there is no going to UPSC without NCERT.
Okay.
So, because NCERT, if you see these books, the students would agree with me. If you see these books have been very meticulously written with an intention to give an in-depth analysis of each and every subject, right? If you see the people who are involved in the curriculum, syllabus and other things, very eminent people like, R.S. Sharma sir, your Satish Chandra sir, your Bipin Chandra sir, all these people are involved in the curriculum making of, NCERT. And if you ask me personally, without NCERT, I don't think UPSC would be, possible for you. I'm not saying it is impossible, but it will ease off a lot of things. It will ease off a lot of things. So it is very, very essential.
Some tips for the students for easy writing.
Essay writing.
Yes.
Yeah. See, probably most of the students in the south, at least, they are coming from BTech background and medicinal background, and I'm very sure that it would have been long time that they would have written any essay, right? So see, essay, when you are writing an essay, it is a mix of your information as well as your emotion. So what you feel about a particular issue. So the essay has to be a combination of, a very beautiful combination of your content as well as what you feel about a particular issue or a subject in question there in the essay, right? So I always tell my students, it is advisable to start an essay with a quote, a very famous quote or something you can pick up, and lot of students feel that because I am reading so many books, so much of data is coming to him, he or she might feel that I can easily write an essay. But however, it is not the case, because if you have not particularly not practiced essay writing, you will find it very difficult in the examination hall to write an essay, because as I told you, essay is a very unique combination of current affairs related static information, current affairs related information. It has got its own historical, that particular question in essay, it might have its own historical perspective, it might have its own present perspective, and maybe also future perspective. And if you are not able to add your emotional quotient into that essay, maybe you will not be able to impress the examiner, for which you have to practice a lot, for which maybe you have to take the help of some quotes written by various people, some anecdotes you have to write. You have to write about maybe some of your personal experiences in life related to essay in that particular issue. You might also have to create a data of your own essays. See, there are some common topics like topics like development, topics like unemployment, topics like education sector, health. So I suggest students to have a bunch of essays written by themselves, thoroughly researched, having a combination of both the content as well as an emotion quotient. So that will help them to quickly revise before the examination and also in speedy writing of that particular essay graph. And one more suggestion I always give my students is, because essay you have the liberty to write, generally there is no very strong restriction on the words. Though they say that write an essay in this particular words, there is some liberty which a student has when he is writing the essay. So I always tell my students to start the essay with a synopsis. Synopsis is a summary. So if the essay is going to say about 8 to 10 pages, in the first 2 pages, in very brief, try to write what is there in that essay in the next 8 pages. So it will give a breather to the the person who is correcting your paper. He knows, okay, in the next 8 pages, I am going to find these points. So before he goes to your essay correcting, he will get an opinion. Acha, this person knows all these issues related to this particular topic. So before he or she goes to correct your essay, you have created a positive impression on the invigilator, making him or her to give you more marks in that essay. So these are small strategies I always tell my students. See, addressing essay is a big session. it takes good to 3 to 4 hours to explain the nuances of small issues related to essays. So I think covering that in detail in this particular video, I think it will be a very daunting task for me personally. So this is some of the what you call suggestions as regards essays I would like to.
Then some tips how to bridge the gap between prelim and mains.
See, bridging the gap between prelims and mains is probably one of the most difficult tasks which generally the students face. Why? Because one of the most important reason for this is when they were preparing for prelims, they have not simultaneously prepared for mains. And if you see the time gap between prelims and mains, it is hardly 2.5 to 3 months at max. Okay. So the student who was not confident with his or her prelims preparation dedicates more and more time only to prelims, trying to by heart content and not practicing how to present this content in a good way in the mains examination. Because as I said, mains is a descriptive type of examination, subjective, you have to write, but when it comes to prelims, it is only objective, you have to select which is the correct answer. So in an urge to definitely clear prelims, students generally negate the hard work which is required in mains. And when I say mains, they either completely negate their preparation for their optional and essay, and especially paper 4 ethics, because these are the 3 papers where very different and a very specific effort is required. So bridging the gap between prelims and mains, the preparation for this starts much before prelims examination. As a thumb rule, what generally the senior mentors and the teachers say is, before at least 3 to 4 months before your prelims, your mains preparation should be over. So that is the strategy which they say, because after prelims the time is very less, because you have to revise so many things, and if you start your mains preparation after prelims, then there is no time left for you to revise. So as a thumb rule, to bridge the gap between prelims and mains, I always suggest my students that your mains preparation should be kind of complete or over 3 to 4 months before your prelims examination. So the best way to bridge the gap between prelims and mains is you complete your mains preparation 3 to 4 months before your prelims examination. That is the surest way of telling that one person can clear his or her mains examination. So this is how I suggest my students, so that see, after prelims, generally the UPSC takes 35 to 40 days of time to release the results. The seriousness for the mains generally does not come amongst the students before the prelims result is out. So as I said, the gap between prelims and mains is hardly 90 days, and if you subtract this 40-35 days from those 90 days, hardly 50 days time is left. So preparing holistically for mains in that 50 days time is kind of next to impossible. He may write something in the mains, but he may not get the choice of his or her cadre. So I always suggest my students, if you want to leap from prelims to mains successfully, you try to cover up your mains preparation 3 to 4 months before prelims examination.
Is Delhi avoidable in the process of preparation?
See, this is a $1 million question. In the past 10 to 12 years, or probably before that also, what we have been seeing is the top ranks. Generally, students from Delhi are getting the top ranks. When I say students from Delhi are getting, they are not the students who belong to Delhi or something. They are the students who have migrated from across the country and have gone to Delhi to prepare for their examination. And one of the primal reasons for this migration is basically the quality of coaching that is available in other cities. When I say other cities, it could be Bangalore, it could be Bombay, it could be Hyderabad, it could be Chennai, it could be Calcutta or other centers, right? So as I told you earlier, most of these institutions have glorified prelims to an extent that they have completely forgotten the importance of mains as part of UPSC preparation. So over a period of time, there is a psyche amongst the students that once you clear prelims, the next stage is we have to go to Delhi to prepare our mains. But that is not the case generally, because I have I have known a lot of students who have not gone to Delhi and got a good rank. But yes, because there is lack of quality, what you call institutional support, which is missing in other parts of the country, That is the reason why students are, you know, migrating to Delhi for the mains preparation especially. And some optionals like, you know, economics, some optionals like law. So these are the subjects where quality institutional support is not available in other parts of the country. If a student opts either of these subjects, maybe other subjects also, they generally happen to go to Delhi. So for in that case, Delhi is kind of non-avoidable. But when it comes to other subjects like, you know, optional subjects like geography, PubAd, and other subjects like anthropology, sociology, good faculties are available in other parts of the city also. But because there is a trend amongst the students to immediately go to Delhi after clearing prelims, I think that is not actually required. That is not actually required. If you have been guided well by your institution or by your mentors, I think the need to travel to Delhi can be avoided. And see, in this corona times, whatever we are facing today, corona has taught us one very good thing, that education can be accomplished through online platform also. I think this is the, it can work as a catalyst where, you know, the students now realize that physically moving to Delhi may not be required. Even if they get a good online platform to support for their preparation, I think this migration from various parts of the country to Delhi can be avoided to a large extent. Why? Because see, you may only think from the point of view of migration. Say a student from Telangana or Andhra travels to Delhi. There is a cultural gap because he is from a completely different culture. Language becomes a big barrier because he may not understand Hindi as a medium of instructions, because many of the institutes, though they teach in English as an instruction, he may find it difficulty to merge with the crowd in Delhi because who understand only the language of Hindi. The third is the temperature and the climate, not temperature. The climate in Delhi is very, very different than the climate in, you know, what is there in down south. And last but not the least, the food habits. I have seen a lot of South Indian students struggling with their health in Delhi because of this changed weather and the food habits. So all these factors come into play when you are preparing for your examination, and these factors play a very crucial role in deciding what is the time frame you will take to clear this exam. So if you have migrated to Delhi, say after your prelims, and if you are becoming a victim of either of these problems what I have told you, probably your preparation time gets only what you call widened. So Delhi has its own pluses and minuses, but I would very strongly say with conviction that Delhi is not a must. Delhi is not a must. You can avoid Delhi if you have a proper strategy with you, you have very good institutional support, if you have very good mentorship support, if you have a good family support, I think Delhi can easily be avoided and you can surely do well in the exam.
Strategy for newspaper reading.
See, this newspaper reading has been a nightmare for many students, right? The problem again comes with your habit as a graduate student or a, you know, your intermediate student or in schooling. Generally what I have seen is in a culture, newspaper reading as a habit has not got that much of attention. Neither the parents have ensured that, and I think neither the schools have also kind of failed in inculcating the habit of newspaper reading amongst the students. So with this as the background, and after your graduation when you join UPSC, when somebody tells you you should read Hindu newspaper every day, because the language of Hindu happens to be one of the top qualities in our country. Hindu, Indian Express, and you know, the Live Mint newspapers, they are supposed to be the best in our country, right? And the language that these newspapers use is of a high standard, right? And there is something known as in current affairs, there is a continuity of issues, right? If I say today 25th of September, I take a newspaper and try to read the content, I may not understand the issue completely till such time I do not know what happened earlier. So in newspaper reading, it will take 6 to 8 months time for a person to link what he is reading today because something happened some time back. So 6 to 8 months time is a time frame when the students will take to understand to read newspaper perfectly. And many students come to me, sir, I am taking 6 hours, I am taking 8 hours to read newspaper. See, if you are taking 6 hours and if you are taking 8 hours, there could be two reasons. One, your language of English is not up to the mark. Secondly, you are reading stuff which is not required for UPSC. as a thumb rule, what I suggest my students, anything related to politics. When I say politics, it is politics, not polity. When anything is related to politics can be avoided. Anything related to, what you call corporate, when I say corporate entities, their profit and loss, their balance sheets, what is happening in a particular company, all these things can be easily avoided. Regional news, which is of not very important, this thing can be avoided. Sensational news, generally people have that habit of reading sensational news and following it very closely. If these four or five points can be taken care of, sports column also, unless and until you are interested in sports, avoiding that column can also save a lot of your time. So if you can address these 5 to 6 issues when you are reading a newspaper, I think the correct time, what we generally say the apt time, is around 2 to 2.5 hours. And if you are taking more than this, it means you are committing either of these mistakes. Either you are reading it so deliberately. See, I have seen students making notes from the Hindu newspaper or the Indian Express newspaper. See, this will only delay your process of reading the newspaper, because nowadays a lot of institutions are providing online, PDF summaries of newspapers. I think if you can go for that, you can save a lot of time in writing these notes and other things. So as a thumb rule, I suggest my students, wherever you are getting any material readily available in a summary format, try to avoid making notes, because making notes will only delay your reading time. Read as much as you can, make notes wherever it is essential. Okay. So with that thumb rule, if you go, I think 1.5 to 2 to 2.5 hours in particular days, this is the maximum time you should dedicate for newspaper. And coming to newspaper, one more important aspect, follow any one newspaper dedicatedly. So because if you read 2 to 3 newspapers, again you will end up reading 6 to 8 hours only newspapers. So that may not give you completeness for the UPSC preparation. So I always suggest one good newspaper. It could be Indian Express or it could be Hindu. Maybe, see, nowadays Live Mint is coming with very good social topics, social issues. It is covering very well. So you can probably go for Live Mint for particular social topics. Other than that, Hindu or Indian Express, either of it, but dedicatedly reading that newspaper, I think that would be.
Okay, then please tell me importance of revision.
Revision. See, revision is like, it's like, going to temple and not bowing in front of the deity, right? If you do not do revision, and I am very sure, see, because the data is so much in UPSC, that if you do not do revision, you will know that something happened, but you will not correctly or precisely remember what happened. So there is a high probability of you committing a mistake, especially in prelims, because prelims is a game of numbers for qualifying for mains. And if you have not done your revision, because UPSC is generally known to ask tricky questions. See, this question might look very simple to you, but there would be something hidden there. So if you are not able to catch that what is hidden, and if you have not revised it again and again, there is a very high chance that you will commit an error while attempting a prelims question. So I always suggest my students, revision once, twice, thrice, how many number of times you can do. And this 5 to 6 pillars which I have suggested, they have to revise for good about 3 to 4 times at least before going for their prelims examination. Yeah, answer writing. See, answer writing is basically addressing your mains requirement. As I told you earlier, see, if you inculcate the habit of answer writing by thinking, not by seeing in Google or your available knowledge, if you inculcate a habit of answer writing very early as part of your UPSC preparation, it will immensely help you in mains examination, because in mains, it is a fight against the time. So for a question of say 15 marks, 200 words, on an average you will get 7 to 8 minutes of time. And if you say, even if you take a minute or a half to think what I want to write, and if you are not able to write in that 5.5, 6.5 minutes, your battle is gone. So to prepare you to think faster and also think while writing, this practice of answer writing is very, very important. A lot of mentorship programs are coming up nowadays, and they will immensely help the students as regards their mains answer writing practice. So mains most important aspect is your answer writing practice.
Guidance as regards filling DAF form.
See, DAF form is basically your detailed application form, right? once the students clear the preliminary examination, that is the time when they are applying for the mains examination, they have to fill up their DAF form, detailed application form. See, there are three main challenges with the, what the students face when they are filling this DAF form. First is hobbies, the biggest challenge, what to write in hobbies. Second is the choice of your service, whether you want IAS, IPS or IFS or other central cadre services, right? And the third important, the challenge is cadre. You want to take which state cadre, which state particular cadre, you want to take Andhra, you want to take Telangana, you want to take Gujarat, maybe any other state for that matter. See, so DAF form is the base on which your interview would be conducted. So I strongly suggest students to be utmost careful in what they are filling in the DAF form. Because if you fill in casually without applying your thought and deliberation, your DAF form, you are kind of digging your own grave in the interview. Because if you loosely write, say for example, a student writes, gardening is my hobby, right? And I've seen students in the mock interviews and all, when I say, okay, give us some garden tips related to, say, kitchen garden. So they are like, sir, I have only one tulsi plant at home, I pour water every day, that is the only gardening I know. But that's not the case, you are understanding. So it is a foolishness on part of the student to write gardening as a hobby. See, what I see, students always come to me, sir, is writing hobby essential? So in the first place, I say yes, very much. See, we are all human beings, we are all social human beings, right? We will definitely have, every individual will definitely have some or the other interest. You may have interest in listening to good, soft songs or something. I may have, good inclination in reading books, maybe a particular set of books, maybe. So what UPSC wants is, it is looking for a holistic person. See, we are not robots, right? So we will end up having some or the other interests. So UPSC is wanting to know as an individual, what are your interests? So if you write casually, like, reading is my hobby. People write only reading. They don't even write reading books.
Yeah.
Reading has got multiple dimensions, right? So you have to be very, very careful in what you are writing. So this filling of DAF form in itself, I take a lot of sessions on filling of DAF form. It is for 2 to 3 hours we take to explain each and every column in the DAF form and the importance of each and every column to the student, right? So covering that in entirety may be a problem in this particular video, but in general, what I have always seen that the students face difficulty in 3 issues. One is your hobby, selection of a hobby. Secondly is your, choice of service, and the choice of cadre. We will come up gradually with, some more videos on after the prelims examinations are out, the result is out. We will try to come up with more videos on assisting students in filling up DAF form. So maybe I suggest students to go through those videos to get a complete holistic understanding. See, if you commit a mistake in DAF form, you have to live with that mistake for the rest of your life. So for example, in the chronology of sequence, I have put IAS, IPS and IFS. IFS is the cadre. But I am a very introvert person, I don't want to go out of my country. Because of your rank, if you get stuck up in IFS as the cadre, because IFS and IAS, if you get IAS or IFS, if you want to rewrite this particular examination again, even if you get IFS, you have to resign from that service. It is not the case in other cases. Even if you get IPS, while being in service, you can write the examination. If you get Indian Revenue Service or any other central services or the Group B services, you can still be in the service and write the examination. But if you get IAS or IFS, and if you are looking for something else, and if you want to write the examination again, then you have to resign that particular service and write the examination. So one has to be very, very careful in choosing what he wants. See, I may not be wanting to be, say, I have a medical category. So for example, I am colorblind, right? But my rank has come in a bracket that I am not eligible for IAS. Because of my medical condition, I am not eligible for IPS. And I am falling in that bracket where I am qualifying for IFS. And I don't have any liking for IFS. And if you give choice of preference IFS as a third option, you will definitely get that. So, and now it is a catch-20 situation for you. If you want to write in future again, you have to resign from IFS and then again appear in the examination. That's a very difficult challenge. It's a very difficult decision for the students. I have a lot of students of mine who have accidentally fallen in IFS. and they are not feeling very happy about it, because that is not their inclination to travel abroad. They do not have that inclination. They want to stay within India, but luckily or unluckily, they have got IFS as the card. So filling of DA form, there are a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration. I suggest my students, when we upload this video, before filling your DA form, go through the details very clear.
Approach to CSCAT preparation.
CSAT. Yeah, CSAT we call it. See, there are, see, CSAT as a what you call mode of examination was introduced by UPSC recently. When I say UPSC, maybe 2013-14 time frame, they have introduced this CSAT as a paper, right? So what happens in this CSAT part is, you have to have a good analytical reasoning background. I have seen students with BTech as a background also failing in CSAT paper. So I always suggest my students to revise about CSAT, revision of my, what you call analytical reasoning, basic mathematics which is asked, and comprehension. Reading comprehension is a major part of your CSAT paper. So I suggest the students to break their preparation into two parts as regards CSAT. One is reading comprehension, the second is your mathematical ability. Revision, even though you might be good at mathematics, I sincerely suggest my students to revise at least 40-50 days before. Start revising your mathematical, what you call formula revision, maybe your multiplication tables revision, because that will help you in reducing the time you take to attempt a question. Though this paper happens to be only qualifying in nature, where you need to get 33% only marks, and it will not add to the merit either, right? So, but students at times fail to get this 33% also. I have known students who have got 140 plus in paper 1. 140 in paper 1 is considered to be fantastic score. But I have seen students failing in paper 2 not even getting 33%. So, where 140 and where is 66? Out of 200, 33% happens to be 66, right? So, they fail to get 66 also. So, I always suggest my students, you need to have a dedicated approach for your CSAT paper as well. You break it into two parts. Reading comprehension. See, the reading comprehension is taken care by your regular reading of newspaper editorial articles and other things. But to some extent, you need to practice how to read a paragraph and how to derive some information from it, and based on that your understanding of the information, how to solve the questions. So practice of what you call comprehension, practice of mathematics, both is required. Both is very, very important.
How to target interview preparation?
See, interview, one must understand one basic thing about interview is, see, interview is technically not the test of your what you call knowledge. It is basically the board, the panel which interviews you. They want to see how you are as a person, because the knowledge testing has happened in prelims, the knowledge testing has happened in mains. The reason for interview is, that is why it is called personal interview. Right? It is called personal interview with an intention that they want to know you as a person. That is how columns like what are your hobbies. So all these things come up because they want to see that, are we selecting a person who will fit in the requirement of civil services cadre or not. It might so happen that you have got extremely good scores, but I have seen people who have got, though despite having very good scores in the written examination, did not fare very well in the interview part. Why? Because maybe though they are good in the subjective knowledge, but maybe as a person, as an individual, they would not have been able to satisfy the board. Because see, civil services is not a job. See, it is a service, right? And you need to have certain qualities as an individual to fit into that particular atmosphere of civil services, right? The interview is basically aimed to see you, what is your personality, holistic personality of a particular individual. Whether he is sympathetic towards the subordinates, whether he is showing empathy towards them or not, what is his awareness level, whether he is able to work as a team, whether he is able to lead a particular a district or maybe higher ups. So all these qualities are tested as part of your interview. So I always suggest my students, for interview, more than your knowledge or awareness, your personality shaping up is very, very important. And the day one, I always tell the students, if you want to do well in your interview, start behaving as if you have already passed the examination and think that you are an administrator. When you bring that change in your personality over a period of time as part of your teaching, the interview will become easier. So if you have been a different person altogether, if I suddenly tell you behave well in the interview, it will come out. Your basic instinct, your basic nature will come out in front of the panel. So it is always suggested, because you have chosen this particular path of civil services, which is more service oriented. And if you have that bent of mind, start behaving as if you are an administrator and try to address issues around you accordingly. So that will immensely help you in your what you call interview process. See, interview, even if you do not know an answer, you can very simply say, sir, I beg your pardon, I am not aware of this particular issue. So they will not take it negatively, because if you try to bluff in front of the interview, see, they are more learned persons than you. They have seen life in and out, that's why they are sitting there as panel. If you try to bluff, they will also behave as if they have fallen prey to your bluff, and they will grade you accordingly. So you have to be very, very clear. So bluffing, there is no scope. It is not the test of your knowledge. It is the test of your personality. So try to orient your preparation from the perspective of a personality test and not a knowledge based test. So I always suggest my students this. So for interview, a very different approach of preparation is required. Not what you call, you should not be completely unaware of current affairs, what is happening, but at the same time, the polishing of your personality is what is more required for UPSC interview, more than the content part.
Thank you very much. So, మీరు ఇక్కడికి రావడం, and you gave lot of suggestions to beginners and ఎవరైతే ట్రైన్ అవుతున్నారో వాళ్ళందరికీ కూడా thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for calling. See, it is always a pleasure to connect with the students, right? And I feel that this is a very good platform through which we can connect to the people who cannot come to what you call cities or towns and study for themselves. So I wanted to have this interview with an intention to target a very large spectrum of students who are aspiring. See, there are a lot of students who have doubt, nenu cheyagalana cheyalena, is it the right choice for my life or not? So all these nuances I wanted to clear through this particular platform. So thank you very much for calling me. It was so nice talking to you, Indu madam, and I am very sure that lot of students would probably understand what is required in UPSC better now. That's my intention of coming and attending this particular interview.
Thank you very much.